for the glory of old state, for her founder strong and great, for the future that we wait. Raise the song, raise the song.
Where else would you rather be? I'm Paul Clifford, CEO of the Penn State Alumni Association. Welcome to the People of Penn State podcast. Each week on the podcast, you can expect to hear the voices of Penn Staters talking about what they're passionate about, and you can expect to feel the pride and the power of the Penn State Network. The People of Penn State podcast can be found on Apple Podcasts or on your podcast app of choice. Subscribe and give us a rating. Ratings and reviews help others find these great stories. And we have another story, a great story from another Penn Stater to pass on to you today. Today we're talking with Brandon Carter. He is the American Shakespeare Center third artistic director. He's a Virginia native, originally from Heathsville. Prior to his appointment in January of 2022, he became an ASC company member in spring of 2018, collaborating in more than 40 different roles, from lovers like Orlando and As You Like It to fighters with Anthony and Cleopatra, schemers where he played Cassius and Julius Caesar, and the incomprehensible scholar Hugh Evans in The Merry Wives of Windsor. We're going to dive into his career and what he does as the artistic director at the American Shakespeare Center. But I'm delighted to welcome Brandon Carter to the podcast. Brandon, how are you today?
Good. How you doing, Paul? We are. Hey. Hey.
That's fantastic. Where are you today?
I'm currently in my office right now, just taking a break to be here and chat with you all, and I'm doing all right. Yeah. How you doing?
Excellent. Let's start right at the very beginning. How did you become a Penn State Nittany Lion?
Well, I was at Longwood University in Farmville, Virginia, where I got my undergrad in organizational and strategic communication and theater. Then I ended up switching. I was, I'll be honest, I was a fifth-year senior and didn't know what I wanted to do. So I had a teacher that said, you should audition for these classical programs. I always had a knack for them. And there were two programs that I could afford to go to at the time, and that was the USD Globe in San Diego, which is a big classical program. I couldn't afford the ticket to go out. So my backup was Penn State, and not that it was not because Penn State was less than, but as far as the acting that I knew, USD was sort of like the standard until I found out about Penn State. I took the bus up to Penn State and there was an open audition for the MFA program there. And, I got there and, I was nervous, came in there with my cowboy boots from Virginia, like just flashy, whatever. And, I had a good time meeting the people and the professors who were like, just very competent in what they do. And I got all throughout the day for the first round. And, they said, each one of you will hear from us about, whether you got in or not to move on to the callbacks. So everybody's name gets named or whatever. And it's like, all right, it's time for lunch. My name hasn't been named. I'm like, hey, excuse me. Could you at least tell me if I'm going to go home or not? And they were like, oh, we're so sorry. Yeah, you're called back or whatever. So they were like, okay, here's these sides. You need to learn these sides for the callback, just to kind of assess you a little bit more. And, I learned the sides. I'm in it. Like, I got it. And we get to the end of the day and everybody, they're like, oh, yeah, okay, well, we're going to go meet at we're going to go meet downtown. And and I said, okay, hey, I haven't done my side yet. And I know I've been called back. So can I do the side? And I was like, I'm not going to get in this program. They're forgetting me already. So, I heard something back from them within a week, and I got a full ride to go to that program. It was under Jim Wise, Mark Olson, Steve Broadnax, Bill Doan. And, I had the biggest awakening in my life. I don't think I've ever been through anything like that, about finding out who I was as an artist, what I really wanted to do. It gave me some well-rounded skills as an administrator. We ended up touring the world with Dominique Morisseau, who's all over Broadway, Steve Broadnax, who has made his way to Broadway, my classmate, Story Ayers, who's directing off Broadway. I'm an artistic director, Kenzie Ross, who's in, you know, we had a special class, and I have the most memorable experiences at that place for the 3 years I was there. So long story short, yeah, that's how I got to Penn State.
It's not just a nerve-wracking experience to audition for something, right? But then to have them forget that you're even there had to kind of amp it up even to the next level.
Oh yeah, I'm competitive too. So I was already in my blood. So, you know, I think having from what I know about Penn State, being a competitive person, I played soccer, I played sports, that's what fuels me to do the art, to be an activist, to stay in it. It is the connections you have with people. So yeah, that's part of it. Yeah.
What was it about the program at Penn State that set you up for the success that you've been able to enjoy?
Wow. I think doing all of the work all the time, I think that's what that instilled in me is that you can't, you can't slack off on, we were during Penn State games, we would have shows. So I'd be like an all black going downtown and everybody's got their jerseys on and I'm like in a sea of blue and white and wearing all black. So, you know, it taught me to be focused, keep my eyes on the prize. That you are part of something much bigger than yourself. That program taught me to be an activist. You know, I thought that I was going to just do it, be in the lights, and, you know, at the time, excuse me if it's inappropriate, but like do it for the ladies, like that kind of thing. But what we do is we are in service to others. And I think I found out my life's calling from that, and from the systems that were in place at Penn State. We were going through a big transition where the head of our program was transitioning out. So he brought in different groups from all over. So we got to kind of pick and choose our path and what we wanted to do. We got a little snippet of everything. We traveled a lot. We went to New York a lot. You know, we were able to tailor make our path. So I wanted to do Shakespeare. I've always wanted to actually work in the organization that I'm at right now since I was a kid. They were a beacon of light for someone from where I'm from, 3 hours away from this place in Stanton, Virginia. And I always sort of was striving to get back to this place. So this kind of set me up, traveling to London because of the program, traveling to Africa and doing stuff at the Market Street stage, the opportunities and the doors that program opened up for me as a Black kid from Heathsville, Virginia, that's what set me up for where I'm sitting now, at least prepared me, because I didn't know this was going to happen. This is something from left field. But I was prepared because of the program and the push that all of those teachers had on me and the agency that they gave us. So yeah.
Yeah, we're going to dive into the activism piece in just a couple minutes and talk a little bit, obviously, more about the Shakespeare Center and about your role there. But you leave Penn State. Take us on your career journey that led you to your current role.
Third year, I think this is 2014. We commissioned, actually, I think that began in 2013, excuse me. So we commissioned Dominique Morisseau, who was a up and coming playwright. She had some buzz. She had some big plays off Broadway, and a poetess, like activist, whatnot. And our professor, Steve Broadnax, ran into her on the street. And just, if you ever meet Steve, like you are sucked into this person, this human. He's inquisitive. He wants to know about you. And if he supports your work, he becomes a hype person indefinitely. And I think they hit it off, and he offered her some time to let us commission her and write a new play. So around that, the class that we had at the time, we built a company surrounding that. We we were in the room with the new work, building this piece, and we all had a say in how, you know, in the construction of it. So we get to 2014, we open it at Penn State. It has a short run there, but then we start raising money, becoming fundraisers, and we start a company, and we tour it to South Africa, the Grahamstown Festival, Market Street Theatre, or Adelaide Fringe Festival in Australia. We went to London. And then we ended up at the National Black Theatre. There were a few other stops there, but we traveled around and really catapulted us into New York. Whereas you don't have, generally you have to audition, you have a showcase. Our showcase was a show. We produced a show from a major institution, college, and we did it ourselves. And that is what set all of us up to at least be seen, to see our full body of work connected to a playwright who then, you know, ends up on Broadway writing for Shameless on, you know, Showtime, like, writing the book for Ain't Too Proud to Beg. Not only that, but put us in a track to be in the conversation. And I think I was there for a minute. I did some work with the Classical Theater of Harlem for 3 years. I was there in New York for about 4. I did a lot of off-Broadway stuff. I did Drunk Shakespeare up there, which prepared me for like the groundlings, what the groundlings we used to do. You would have to use the text to kind of quell the people and shut them up and whatnot. And I got my experience of that there in New York. And then I had to come home. You know, I think I came home around 2017. I was still in a show. My grandparents raised me, so I had to go home and take care of home. And then one of my grandparents passed, the one that was actually taking care of the one that was sick. A year later, my other my grandfather passed, out of heartbreak or whatnot. So I was home, and I was like, everything was sort of left to me. And I was trying to make that connection of like, do I stay home? Do I go back to New York after this last show? And I stayed home. I auditioned. I said, well, I'm just going to audition for the ASC. And that was around 2007, the fall of 2017. And 2018 is when they gave me a chance. And I've been a resident company member here since 2018. In the past year, I was moved to artistic leadership through in pandemic, and that's sort of where I got my footing to where I am now. So that's what kind of leads me to today. That's my theater journey.
That's amazing. When did you know that you wanted to be an actor? Where was that passion sparked for the work that you're doing today?
There were 2 things I was really good at. So let's take it all the way back to Heathsville, Virginia, where I was raised. So I was raised I was a 4th generation commercial fisherman. So you go all the way out east of Virginia, and you go all the way down to the water and the sticks. And my great grandfather, he was a cook on the ship. My grandfather was a captain of a ship. My dad was a mate, and I was the bunt pile man. So I had to, I came in entry level for a season. And that's all I knew. They sang shanties to help them to lift the purse seines, the nets. And that was sort of my introduction to art, to music, was my grandfather singing me those songs. So when I was raised by my grandparents, I started getting into arts. My grandmother always was pushing me into the creative lanes. My grandfather was like, teach me how to work on a truck, or, like go fishing and stuff like that. And I always took to acting. I always took to like art and stuff like that. But I knew how to do the other stuff. But I think it was when I was, I wasn't the best in school. I had a really short attention span, and, I was bored a lot. And, I was getting kicked out of school and stuff. And I feel like we hear that story often, but it was happening to me. I wasn't being challenged enough in school. And I think that's a whole nother conversation about our education system. But I think Shakespeare like I read Julius Caesar, and those words sort of inspired me in a way that I had never been inspired before. It spoke to me kind of like how the shanty spoke to me that my grandfather would sing to me. And I just started going that route. I was playing soccer and I got kicked off the team. And she said, well, my teacher said, well, you can be on the squad or the drama team. And I just did that. And I had done a few plays before that, but it really kind of kicked in for me and started my trajectory in the field, I would say. So that's been, what, 2015? That's been a long time, or excuse me, not 2015, 2005 is when I graduated. So I've been in it for a long time. Yeah.
This is the People of Penn State podcast. I'm Paul Clifford. I'm joined today by Brandon Carter. He's the artistic director of the American Shakespeare Center and a proud Nittany Lion.
We are.
I want to dive into, you've described yourself as an activist, right? You may have gotten involved in the work for the lights and the ladies, right? But as you began to develop your craft, right, your why has changed over the years. So what is your why? Kind of what is the driving force inside you behind how you choose to be an activist and an actor and a performer and an artist?
I think I'll speak for myself like Brandon Carter right now. And I will say, being around the words or being around classical text 24/7, you find yourself in a lot of problematic, archaic language, language that hasn't been challenged in a long time. We appreciate Shakespeare for his insight, for him being sort of way ahead of his time. All of these themes that sort of define what it means to be a human. And if you are just putting up these plays to entertain, to maintain a status quo, and I think in 2022 you actually are doing a disservice to what he actually meant. And I think he was a man writing of the times, and I think the times change, but the core, the seed is always there. So what I've been trying to do, my activism, is parsing through that with my team, with my distributed leadership here, and really interrogating it through enrichment programming around the shows and saying why we are doing these shows in 2022 by programming other contemporary works that are in conversation with these pieces. So my activism is making sure that we are holding ourselves accountable. And me as an artistic director, and a Black artistic director at that, I don't take that lightly. It's scary. It's confusing. There's a lot of dense text that I don't even understand. Right. But I know that when we get to a place where we are saying, like in Othello, a sooty bosom or whatever, and a Black man is across from you, we have to hold space for how that artist feels, what we're saying with that, because it's harmful. And I think right now in the theater and the initiatives that are happening, I think, it should be a place where we're leading from kindness and intention. So my activism is through being here at the American Shakespeare Center, which is a hub of academia for Shakespeare in the world. We're known for that. And is challenging it like systemically, really at the root of everything, because we have big conferences here. We have people all over the world here in the Shenandoah Mountains coming here to discuss Shakespeare, and you don't ever have people really challenging it. So I think that's what I'm interested in, collaborating with BIPOC scholars that are coming in and saying, this is not okay anymore. This is not okay. And that makes it tough for me being a classical artistic director, but that's my job and that's my calling. And that's what I'm sort of inspired to do. So that's my little bit of activism. Again, another thing, what we do differently than any other theater is, when you go to the theater, you are in an audience that's pretty much blacked out. Well, here, we call that the fourth wall. So here, the lights stay on, and we honor Shakespeare's original staging conditions. The lights are just a general wash. You see everybody next to you. It's like being in church. So there's a reverberation throughout the whole room a lot of that text, if you know Shakespeare, you're taking a lot of that text to the audience members. Well, in most theaters, you don't, you have that wall, so you can't really see the person. Here, you can't hide. There's a vulnerability. You can see your activism in motion. And if you have the right artists that come here and know what it's about, then, that's sort of my hope. But that's where the power of his words can be fully transformative. It can be expansive. And I think that's what the intent of the playwright was. So, yeah.
So I was recently watching an interview with Denzel Washington, right? And Denzel's gotten a lot of attention lately for the great work that he's done with Macbeth. And in the interview, he had a strong reaction to the interviewer's use of the word diverse, right? The point that he was trying to make was that the talented cast was in their roles for no other reason than their talent, right? Than what they were bringing to the table. So I wanted to turn that around on you a little bit and ask, like, how do you reconcile the role that you play, right, and that you've acknowledged already as a role model and an inspiration for younger Black actors, and at the same time know that you are in your rightful place because of your talent and your hard work?
Could you repeat that question? That was a pack. Hey, Paul, you kind of layered. Give it to me again.
Yeah, it's kind of recognizing how the role that you play as a role model, right, to younger Black actors who are aspiring to be in your role, and at the same time knowing that that you are in the place that you're at because of hard work and talent and really no other reason, right? It struck me that Denzel's response was, we're where we should be and for no other reason than our talent.
Yeah, I mean, I believe, like, in a larger sense, like, we are where we are supposed to be, and just as human beings. And, as far, like, my thing is when it comes to you, are you ready for it when it comes to you? Your opportunity, we always say in acting, like, the moment that you think to leave or like not do it anymore, because it is a tough profession, we're independent contractors, essentially. The moment you turn your side, like, the opportunity was right there and you just missed it. You didn't wait long enough. I think as far as Denzel, that's my idol. Like, he could do no wrong in my opinion, but he's getting older, whatever. But I think, I will say, in harp on the question a little bit, I think it is a Black artist's responsibility to sort of reach back and give opportunities to other Black people and BIPOC artists. I think that is sort of an unspoken code, and I will say that confidently and with all the love. I think it is my responsibility to make sure that if I'm in a position of power to make, to open a door for somebody, then I'm going to do it. And that doesn't limit. It's not limited to just Black folk. It's when I'm up there playing Henry V, I was the first African-American male in the United States to play the Henriad in 400 years. In 400 years that happened. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it becomes a responsibility of mine to make sure that stuff never happens again, ever. It never happens again, that there's a trans actor playing this eventually. There is, anyone else in underrepresented communities inhabiting this roles, because that's how we grow as a culture. And especially that's how we control how we're seen. If you see one Hamlet, if you see that the whole time, then you think that's only reserved for that person. And I think that's where the problem has been, at least in classical work. So yeah, I'm going on a tangent here because I'm upset as an artist right now. I'm like fired up and stuff. So I have a lot of things on my mind, but I will kind of put a period to that. Like, that it is your responsibility as a human, as an artist, to inspire the people that you are doing it for. People are investing in you to dream. You know what I'm saying? So, like,
yeah.
If I'm on stage, if I see that little kid, it doesn't matter if that little kid is Black, white, or whatever. That kid has seen me, this Black body, inhabiting this role, And now they're gonna, they're gonna be a doctor, a king, a lawyer, or whatever, because they saw me and I have a different perspective. It's not just a white man or whatever. It should be, you should mix it up. You should rotate it. So I hope that answered the question. But
well said. Well said. I want to tap into and hopefully in a respectful way some of the anger that you're feeling right now as an artist. You did an interview in 2020 that I watched, that you were hopeful about the social justice movement, but you were acknowledging that work still needs to be done, right? That the movement was having its moment, right? And yet we can't just let this moment pass. We all need to put the work in. And now we're 2 years removed from that interview, and I watch TV and I read the news, and some states are legislating against the teaching of LGBTQ issues. There's the backlash against CRT being taught and systemic racism. There's books being removed from schools, right? How can Shakespeare help us make the strides and grow our understanding of equity, justice, and love?
Well, I will say the same things in Shakespeare are the same things that are going on in society, like toxic masculinity. There's injustice. There's all sorts of themes that you don't have to parse through or add any style to, or add any, like that's what makes Shakespeare almost problematic. So, I would say, oof, that's a question. Sorry, that one hit me.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I think we are fighting for basic human rights. And I think it's the work that our grandparents were doing. It's across cultures. It's the stuff in the workplace that we shouldn't be fighting for in 2022. I think theater especially in Shakespeare, and what I got shaken up about a couple of seconds ago, it should create a conversation. Yeah. At the end of a show, you should be so moved, you should be so upset that you want to unpack it in the space. You want to try and fix and add, add your perspective in the room. It should fire you up that much. That's what it was created for, to comment on the times. That's what our real role is as theater makers, as wonder makers, as activists. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's what I'm upset about, is that we've, not just theater. I just think that we shouldn't be, as artists, fighting for basic human rights, basic pay to live, hair products that are not available to us, access to certain roles, it's the simple stuff. Yeah. It's like we're in the 80s or the 90s, so, and we should be in 2022. Yeah. So that's what I'm fighting for as a leader and as an artistic leader, learning as I go, because it shifted so much because of pandemic. Pandemic exposed everything. It gave these artists time to think and say, no, we're actually, equity, the union was started in, the 30s or the teens or whatever, because of this reason. And we're still fighting for that. Like, we're fighting to put food on the table, but you want us to be at our highest caliber. You want us to work 7 days a week, days and stuff like that. And it's those days are over. Everybody should have a work-life balance. And that's stuff that I'm fighting here for, which I am in process of doing, and have achieved a lot of that. Just because I'm in the room, just because I have an awareness of it, and I'm riding the line of actor and administrator. And I think that's the importance of it, is making sure that artists are in the room, because we have lived an experience of it. And a lot of times these things they have the best intentions, but you just don't have somebody in the room to advocate for it. So I found my time here as an easy, so far, the initiatives that I'm putting in place to be an easy fix for the time being.
Yeah, you mentioned the pandemic. The pandemic has been hard on our country. It's been hard on leaders, right? Having to tap into leadership skills that weren't weren't a high priority for leaders, right? That the amount of caring and empathy that leaders had to display during the pandemic, I think, was really one of the only skills that we could implement, right, to help people through this, right? It's the theater wasn't immune to this, right? You talked about this. I know what Broadway had to deal with and being put on hold and now just coming back. How did you lead through the pandemic? How did you adjust? And how are you better as a leader because of it?
I will say, during the pandemic, we were going through a transition as a company as well. We shut down for a little bit because of the initial, the uprising of the pandemic. And then we found a way to stay open. And that meant us leaving the union for a little bit, which was, not the best. It was the best decision for this company. But as far as being a part of the bigger picture of the theater, it was probably the wrong decision because it took us a while to get back into the union. But during the 2 years of the pandemic, we followed the guidelines. We worked with the infectious disease specialist in town here with Augusta Health. And we developed our own plan to make sure that the theater and folks here were safe. And, we took a big risk doing that. But being that we were in conversation and then our community collaborated with one another and were more than willing to keep this particular place alive, we had no issues with COVID. We were essentially like a big family for 2 years, a bubble. Like the folks that we ended with, some of them moved on and then a lot of them stayed. So we had artists in town. We made art. We had everyone in the room about what the future of this place was. And I think this company, if we hadn't have stayed afloat during that time, you wouldn't be seeing me as an artistic director, and this place would probably have been gone. So I think coming out of that, and then having to shut down, not because of COVID, but for other reasons, I think we were actually, put in place to do the work that, the theater and the world wants us to do. So like, we're actually have the We See You Right American Handbook right next to us while we're trying to, making sure that we are, remaining advocates and stuff like that. And the equity handbook, those things have changed drastically and they are continuously changing. So it's, I think coming out of it, I've become a better leader. It's been a learning curve for me. I've only been in this position for 3 months. Before that, I was leading with a team. So like, you go into this thing, you've been in this thing for a couple of years with a group of people, and then all of a sudden it's you. So you're one voice in a sea of many now because of our distributed leadership. So, it's challenging. It's hard to be an artistic leader right now, much less a leader of any kind of organization. We don't have money. You know what I'm saying? Like we're all struggling. You know what I'm saying? And we're on a tight budget, and I think that's forced us to think outside of the box. Our space is, we have no bells and whistles. There's no lights. Again, just reminding you, like, we're in the raw. It's an organic experience. The body in space, you are the instrument. And I think not having big set pieces and stuff, our production costs are already down. So we had to go from working as a minimal theater to going even smaller, from a $3 million company to a $1.2 million company. So, it just has made the work better here. So yeah, I'm also in the room. Yep. So like, you have access to your artistic director. So I'm constantly being challenged. I'm constantly growing. I'm growing, when I leave here, I'm meeting with another actor. I'm constantly hearing what folks are going through, or, what happened 10 minutes ago, and then I'm going back to the office and implementing it. And that's the biggest challenge, is like, there's no buffer from that, where generally an artistic director is like in the office all the time. They come to give the notes, their fundraising. I'm in all of it.
Yeah. Well, look, I know it's tough, right? But I've always argued that creativity actually thrives when there's a scarcity of resources, not an abundance of resources, right? I think you're almost at your most creative when your back's up against the wall trying to figure things out. Then I know money helps, right? I mean, we'd like to have more money, but I actually think that we are more challenged and creative when we have to figure out a way to do it without the money, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Brandon, what is it about Shakespeare, right? The language is complex. It needs to be delivered with rhythm and cadence. It's written in the 16th and 17th century, and yet the stories are timeless. What is it about Shakespeare that makes it relevant today?
I think, and I'm just going to generally say this, we've talked about the activism, the language or whatnot, but I think there's a forgotten thing about actors as athletes, as emotional athletes, as conduits to something bigger. And I think along the way, you have people that come into the theater and, see us, but I think they discredit us, like the training that we have to go through, the things that we have to do. It's much akin to a basketball player or, like any kind of team sport. I consider the way that I train, the reps that I put in, and me and my other colleagues across, at large, I think people forget about that. And the research, like the mind and body, the research that has to go into it. We're in libraries. We're like constantly, at the table in our dictionaries, we're parsing through this stuff. We're smart and we're strong. And I feel like we get discredited a lot. And I love, I would love for folks to come see rep performances and see us in 2 or 3 different shows and the agility that we have to handle the text, not even just understand it. You have to have like a facility of language. Your jaw, like something as simple as your jaw has to be released. You've always got to warm up. You can't just go out there and speak it. You have to have a knowledge of rhetoric, and how to apply it, and music. I think, Shakespeare's often, it's forgotten about as far as like the musicality in it. I think practitioners know that, but like if next time you go to a Shakespeare performance, think about how like each actor sounds maybe like a different instrument. Right. How is there a different cadence in there? And it's all like, if you don't understand what's being said, you can understand because there is musicality in the language. You could close your eyes and hear something and feel something and be moved. Like it has just so many layers to it. The verse. This is why we're attracted to like hip hop, to, all these different facets of music. If you're looking for that, if you know that, then it's a full-bodied experience. And I think that's why I personally love it. And when you are doing it for a long period of time, you are never not finding something out new about the text or something new about the character. It just has so many layers to it. And this man was writing, and getting drunk and writing at night and really delving into the human spirit. And I think that's why it's lasted for so long. I like things that are lasting. You go at it every night. That's the thing about Shakespeare. You get, and being a stage actor, you get to go at it every night and hit it again. I think that's what, some of the playwrights are going to be, like August Wilson is lasting. He wrote 10 plays, you know what I'm saying? Like right. He's going to 400 years from now be, people are going to be studying him. I think it's those playwrights, and particularly Shakespeare for me, that I'm just interested in. I'm starting to get into like Middleton and all those other folks, but I'm still stuck on these 38 plays. So
you have you've developed a special relationship with Shakespeare's sonnets, and you've put your own modern interpretation on them.
Wow, you did your homework, Paul.
How have they helped you kind of manage the ups and downs of life?
The ups and downs of life. Wow. I think I will say this about the sonnets is that I don't think they were ever meant to be discovered. I think, that was Shakespeare's diary. And I think they were written, you know, we are in somebody's like deep psyche, you know, the rawest and messiest of emotions that we hide from people. And I think that's why the sonnets are so relatable. Like, you think the texts are like Pericles, that's probably like pretty dense. Like Timon of Athens, like those are dense texts, but like you get into the sonnets and it took me like weeks to like sort of get ahead a little bit so I could do the sonnets every day during the pandemic. And I think like I treat the sonnets, I knew that I wasn't going to be acting for a long time. So it's like indoor soccer to soccer. You got to do, like in the winter months, you do indoor soccer to keep yourself sharp. Like in those little moments when you're crossing someone up, or, you know, you're making really specific passes or whatnot. That's how I thought about the sonnets. As far as life, it just got me through all of the things that I was feeling about love in the world at the time. Like, it got me through. And if I hadn't have done that, if I hadn't have done some piece of work, I could have picked up any canon, but that's what I knew. That's my niche. I think it just gave me a little bit of hope. Generally, it just gave me a bit of hope during a time where we all were hopeless and uncertain about the future. Like, there could have been zombies running. Like, we could all turn into zombies. We didn't know what COVID was, you know? So, right. Yeah.
This is the People of Penn State podcast. I'm Paul Clifford. I'm joined by Brandon Carter. He's the artistic director of the American Shakespeare Center. Well, Brandon, we like to have a little bit of fun here at the end of the podcast.
I love fun.
We call it the lightning round. So I'm just going to throw some quick hitters at you, whatever pops to mind.
Okay.
Favorite class at Penn State?
Lunch break.
Lunch break. How about your favorite performance you've ever delivered?
The Brother Size. I played Ogun Size in New Jersey at Luna Stage.
How about your favorite Shakespeare?
Favorite Shakespeare is Titus Andronicus.
Okay. If you can have dinner with anyone, who would it be and why?
I would have dinner with Prince, actually.
All right.
Yeah.
How about your most unusual "we are" moment? Kind of the unusual or unexpected place where someone shout out "we are" or you shouted it out and kind of caught you off surprise with the Penn State connection.
You know what? I'm going to call out Penn State right now, because I feel like when we're on campus, we have a lot of courage and whatnot. We're shouting "we are" or whatever. But when we get outside of Penn State, when we get outside of those campuses, we don't want to like acknowledge you got a sticker on your car. I'm going to come over to you. I might look a little sketchy or whatever and have a big smile on my face, but I'm going to say "we are." And like, you know, that's sort of the access point. So like every instance that I've had with Penn Staters is, if I say "we are," it's more like "we are." And then it's like, you know, it's like, no, be proud. Like we are one of the biggest research institutions in the world. And like, I'm damn proud to be it. So like, yeah, anyway, it's every interaction.
All right.
Be damn proud. We are.
Now, you are an admitted sports fan. What is your favorite Penn State sport?
I would say, I'd say the football. I like football. Okay. I like our football team.
And your favorite flavor of creamery ice cream?
Butter pecan.
Butter pecan. Brandon, I've enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for joining us on the People of Penn State podcast.
Thank you, Paul. We are
Penn State.
Yay.
I want to thank our producer, Vincent Longaro, and our guest relations coordinator, Mara Ryan, for making today's episode possible. If you liked today's episode, I hope that you'll subscribe to the People of Penn State podcast in your favorite podcast app of choice. And while you're there, go ahead, give us a rating and drop us a review and help us spread the word about the People of Penn State podcast. If you're a member of the Alumni Association, thank you so much for your support. If you're not yet a member, what are you waiting for? Go to our website at alumni.psu.edu, and you too can become a member of the world's largest alumni association. Thank you for listening and for all you do for the university, for the glory, and for the future. We are.